while I was on, sparks were coming out of it.
Yeah.
I called him up. Well, said someone else says, and then I says, well, they're doing, the sparks are coming out of it. We'll send you a new one.
Yeah.
There
ain't
it was
nothing
just the
wrong
light fell and it just drew it out a little bit. You know, all it really needed was a light.
Oh, they got the fucking here. Last thing they want is a bill for the fucking house that burned down. Oh, it smells so much better down here.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, at least down here it only smells of gasoline, not
No gas.
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 It smells like gas.
Oh yeah, it smells like gasoline down here.
Yeah, you can smell it. It's not
Well, you can't
bad.
smell nothing because after the fart attack,
You can
it's
smell
burnt out
gas.
your-
It's
yeah, you can
faint,
smell it.
but it's faint.
I'm extremely faint. I don't smell it.
all right, Mike. Till next time. First, I have to set up my seat here.
I think I have another one built up going to the fart car.
No.
You be careful with that gas in there.
Wait a minute here. I got to set up my seat here.
Those are leather seats. You couldn't have sunk in too much. Somebody, you want to get ass blood on your ass?
I bought some nice, brand new. Protection.
All ready for the beach.
Good night, Mike. Yep. Climb over that fucking roof tomorrow.
What's wrong with the roof?
I have to seal it on the small RV. I caught a drip the other day, and that's not good. So I gotta fix that right away. I don't want that getting any worse. I mean, I've had this shit for like a month and a half. I was trying to milk it until it got cooler in the fall before I had to do this shit. I don't like climbing ladders, and I especially don't like climbing ladders in the heat, but what am I gonna do? Can't wait anymore, I guess. That shit is $75 a fucking gallon.
How's the heat and humidity down in the yard?
Terrible. Same as everywhere else.
Jane walked over to one of the other condos the other day, and it was like, you know, when it was like 93, 92 degrees out. Well, it really wasn't that bad out, I don't think, and I came back in here and it was cold.
Yeah, well.
And I'm going, you know, Jane, I think your blood pressure is just a little, or your blood sugar is a little low. And she goes, I think you might be right.
The old man, he's the exact opposite. He's complaining nonstop about the heat even when it's not really that bad.
I mean, you know, hot is hot and cold is cold, but there's got to be a happy medium somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just saying, you know, the older you get, the colder you get. I told her, I says, don't keep it cold in here for me. You keep it to where it's comfortable. However, anything over 85, and then that's it. Now I'm gonna be living. You'll never see me. I'll be in my room. So I told her, I said, you know, and then she wanted to have it around 80, 85. I said, you know, it's cooler outside. There's I saw a news clip. I don't know if this is ancient news, and they have an ironclad down in Savannah, Georgia, that they found in the mud.
Yeah, I remember that.
Oh.
That's a long time ago.
Oh. I know the
Was that the CSS Georgia?
Could be.
Yeah.
It was. I know the Merrimack. They know where it's at, but they can't bring it up.
Yeah.
Because it's all, you know.
It's burned to the waterline anyway. They sank it.
Yeah, it's all. Yeah, they can't do nothing with it, but they know it's.
Yeah, they know what the pieces are anyway.
Now I thought all the ironclads in the South were converted wooden ships. With
They were.
metal, yeah, with metal tops or metal plating, whatever.
Yeah, that's how they did it.
Now tell me about the one in Savannah. Is that in a museum or is it just?
I don't know. I think they salvaged it. What was left of it?
Oh,
anyway.
so that's ancient news then.
Yeah. Oh, that was a long time
Oh
ago.
shit. Okay. I go by Savannah every. That's where the 10,000th B-17 got pushed out. Or at least that's where they're making one of the B-17s. Now I don't know if they kept it or actually sent it off to the war and got it back.
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know if I forgot to ask that question or. But I got pictures of it. And right before you get to the Florida state line there by Savannah, you see the Air Force Museum. And the Air Force runs it. Really cool.
$10,000 B-17s.
From that particular plant.
Yeah. Considering the complexity of the aircraft, that's quite a large number. I mean, it was nowhere near like the B-29, but still.
Towards the end of the war, do you know how many B-24s?
B-24s, I have no idea, but I know the number was very large.
Yeah, they were pushing out one every almost one an hour.
That was in the Ford plant, I think.
Yeah, the Ford. Yeah, in the 3 mile run,
Yeah.
Willow Run.
Yeah. But the 29 was the most complex aircraft of the war on our side.
No, this is a B-17 down there,
I know.
not B-29.
I know.
There are almost no B-29s to even be seen, not even
Well, you know, it
museums.
wasn't made in as large a number as the other aircraft were. One, because it was a large and complex aircraft, but for another, things were evolving so quickly that, you know, it became obsolete almost overnight. The Germans already had designs on the board, and so did the Japanese, that would have surpassed it had, you know, they had time to fully develop them and get them into production. The Germans had been for years working on an intercontinental bomber, a jet bomber, you know, which was designed basically to cross the Atlantic and bomb the United States. As insane as that fucking sounds, but that's what they were going to do.
Got one in the Florida Museum that doesn't fly anymore. It was,
Yeah, well, I'm sure there's plenty of them in museums that don't fly anymore.
No,
That's
this one
easy.
was on tour up until the 90s, and they said they found corrosion on the wing and the structure.
Yeah, you'd have to take the whole thing.
So they yeah, that's what it is. So they brought the whole aircraft inside a hangar. Now it's on in display there, all polished up and pretty.
I mean, they were never designed to last,
No,
you know, as long as they have. So they were of short duration, just to get us through the war. Really, they were only designed for one purpose: drop the A-bomb. It was an airplane that had to be designed to drop one very large bomb. That's all we need to do from very high altitude. So it had to be pressurized. I mean, it dropped plenty of conventional bombs too, but really its one task was that.
3 went to Russia, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's all right. Because, you know,
By the time they perfected it, built it, it was
well,
like
they didn't perfect it, they copied it.
they copied it, right? But by the time they got no use out of it.
No.
It was all like, well, look what we got, and then all that went.
Then it was the jet age.
And then it was like it's like stealing plans of the Model T Ford
They
in
got
1929 and then 1935. Look at the new car we got, and
They got a tiny handful of German scientists. We got all the big names. We got all the big guns, you know.
Japanese and
They didn't get any Japanese scientists. And neither did we. You know, Operation Paperclip was the Germans. You know, I'm sure we got cooperation from Japanese aircraft designers, but the real innovative designs were coming out of Germany at that time.
rocket
Well,
propulsion.
it was jet. The Germans were the only. I mean, the British had a jet aircraft, but they never put it into production during the war. They only had prototypes. We had no jet aircraft. The Japanese had it on paper. The Germans had an operational, the Me-262, an operational aircraft, which was flying combat missions. So that's a major fucking leg up. We took that. We took the scientists who designed it. We took Werner von Braun. We took everybody that we can get our hands on. Didn't matter if they were SS. Didn't matter if they had, you know, questionable credentials and dragged him over to this country and put him to work. So he worked for us now. Start designing. And, we treated him a lot better than the Russians treated the ones they had.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's where the early jet technology comes from, the Sabres and all of that shit.
Oh,
that
I
came
know. Oh, yeah.
directly from German technology. And British jet aviation also, and Russian.
Did I tell you about the curator with the hearing problem down in Florida?
And by the early 50s, we had the B-52, obviously. And before that, there were several, less efficient predecessors, going back into the late 40s for jet bombers. So the B-29's lifespan was relatively short. They did fly missions during the Korean War, but not, what they were really designed to do, which was A-bomb work. That was left to the jet bombers.
There's rumors that they might get the B-29 out of Lake Mead now.
Huh.
You know what Lake Mead looks like now?
It's sinking rapidly.
Yeah, it's like dried up fucking middle of nothing. Before, this thing was down well almost 300 feet. Now, any idiot can go down there. So the Historic Society, along with the government, they want to bring it up and throw it in a museum.
Huh.
So the government said, okay. So there's rumors that they're trying to get some funding and go out there and get it up while they can. So I don't know if they're waiting for the water to go down anymore, or it's just a matter of going out there and getting it. They said they don't want, shitheads going out there.
Was it 300 meters deep or 300 feet deep?
No, it was 300 feet. Now,
okay, because they could have recovered it 300 feet easily.
Well, they had no plans on doing that. Now the 300 feet turned into like less than 100 feet. That's why they're saying it's a little easier.
Yeah.
And get the equipment out there, and
Because I had divers 300 feet deep in the mine today. I mean,
yeah. It's the deeper you go, the more costly.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's like shitheads like me can just go down there with no problem. On my equipment, I can go down there for a longer period. So they want to go down there, and that's what they want. They want to bring the whole thing up, toss it in a museum
before somebody starts carving pieces of it off for souvenirs.
Yep, that's exactly why they say there's so few of them left. And it's not salt water.
No.
That's what they said. That's what's saving it. Is the fact that it's dark and there's no salt water.
The same way things survive in the mine.
Everything, all the fabric is on it. All the fabric, everything looks like it just sunk. Actually, is what
Well, there's no fabric on a B-29.
On the rudder.
All that. Okay, no, it's not
Fabric,
not the fuselage.
No,
Or the wings. They're not a pressurized aircraft.
No. The fabric is on the rudder. The fabric is on the seats. It looks like it just went down 10 or 15 years ago. So that'd make for a cool special.
Yeah.
They say it's a historic site. You can't go there without permission, and people go there anyway. And then you turn around a week later, and here's a posted video. Well, here we are at the B-29, middle of August. They're like, screw you, and they're down there anyway. People getting trophies off the damn thing. They don't like that.
It's like the Andrea Doria.
They say now there are to an equal amount of divers now that there are people who died during the sinking.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised.
So however how many people died on that, there's an equal number of divers now.
Yep.
And it's laying on its side, I believe.
It is. Just the way it sank. I know Dan's been down to the Doria.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think he may also have done the Empress of Ireland. I'd have to ask him on that one, but I think he might have mentioned something about that. Or maybe somebody who dove with him did. I don't know. One or the other.
When do they usually dive? Saturday and Sunday?
Yeah, weekends. They all work, they don't have time to do it any other time. I know the St. Lawrence River is an extremely dangerous dive. And the constantly changing currents are always uncovering things and burying other things. So one time we dived there, and I think they found a stack of newspapers from 1916.
Oh, shit.
Looked like they'd just been dumped there, but they've been covered with sand all that time, you know? Another time I go there, it's a pile of skulls, you know? You don't know what it might be.
How far down is Fitzgerald?
Edmund Fitzgerald.
That's in like
yeah, I know that
that's in
one.
Michigan, right? Or is
Yeah,
that in?
I'm not sure which territory what it's in, but I don't know. I'm not really sure how deep it is. It's considered a grave site, so nobody really goes near it. Not supposed to anyway. And it is, I know it's far out there. It's not
You were
conveniently close to shore, you know.
They had a special on that,
Yeah.
and they said nobody's absolutely need to go near that. Absolutely no one, by request of the family
Yeah.
and the government.
The bodies are all still on the ship.
Yep. So they say the only thing they brought up was they brought the bell up, right?
I think the bell is up, but it wasn't actually attached to the ship. It had broken loose. It was lying on the ocean floor somewhere, I guess. They found it.
They said when they brought that up, it was like an eerie ring when they brought it up.
Well, I imagine so. It's far from the only ship on the Florida Great Lakes, that's for sure.
Up in Erie, near the third Bonhomme Richard, there's something right next to it that looked like Fitzgerald. Yeah, it was creepy looking, you know.
Yeah.
Because you know what those Great Lakes ships look like?
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Long
like
ore carriers and shit.
Yeah, and it looked like that, and then it's just like it's a creepy looking, you know. It's like damn.
Yeah, well. Nobody ever said it was a safe occupation.
Well, it's like the paddle wheel boat that was found in the woods, but it really wasn't.
It was
woods.
Farmer's Field, actually.
Yeah, the farm. Yeah. How long was it down there? 100.
That was the Sultana. That was
Yeah.
down there since 1865. It was carrying former Union prisoners of war back home to the Union from the Confederate States.
And after all that shit they went through,
Yeah, boiler blew. It went down. Blew up, caught fire, and sank. Massive death toll. I think almost as many people died on that ship as on the Titanic, if not more. And they found, when they dug it up, the contents of the hold was still there. There was food, still bottles, jarred. Yeah. I don't know if it was edible, but don't know if I would trust it.
yeah, they got the whole thing out, right? Boilers
Yeah,
and everything.
well,
right?
because it was on dry land by then, but yeah, they got it all out. What there was to get out, anyway.
Next time I go down to Florida, I'm gonna have to stop and check it out. the ironclad. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I remember reading about it quite a while ago.
All right, so that's old ancient history
Yeah.
then. I thought she asked me, and I said I don't know. How many ironclads are there?
That may be the only one that I'm aware of.
That's what I was gonna say. I thought the Monitor was the only one because they got pieces of it in the Maritime Museum. They brought up the gun turret.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And they're bringing up the boilers. They're trying to bring up before it gets eroded away.
Mm-hmm.
Saw the Hunley, which really wasn't an ironclad, but
No, that was a submarine. That was basically a locomotive boiler, is all the Hunley was. But it did successfully sink a Union warship. So it could, I suppose, be considered the first submarine kill ever, you know?
They take because when you take the tour, it's actually, they say this is not a museum, this is a working laboratory,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it looks like a museum. And then they got the coin in there, and they said when we found the coin, so we now know who is sitting here.
Yeah.
It was all bent too.
Oh, yeah.
What did that feel like when a mini ball hit that?
Like someone took a sledgehammer and slammed you in the guts with it, or wherever it happened to have hit.
Rib cage?
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. Broken ribs, bruised.
Yeah.
Yeah, those were slow, heavy bullets. And when they hit hard.
Somebody said they tried to do a test on that, and they had actually a piece of gold, and they fired different distances to figure out how far away to bend, how to make it bend like that. Fucking ouch.
Yeah. Well, the problem with a test like that is that powder charges were inconsistent a lot of times. You know, because the way to load a rifle musket, you take your cartridge, your bullet is on top, you shove it down in there, but you always lose a little bit of powder. You know, it happens. They tear, shit comes out. They weren't that carefully charged at the factory. It was kind of a rough and ready sort of thing. You know, they weren't being very precise at it. Powder quality, of course, wartime, it's going to suck. So the biggest problem, I guess, today would be finding powder bad enough, shitty enough, because modern powder is very finely made, you know, to precise standards, very careful, so we know the burn rate, everything's perfect. Back then, you know, it was good enough. As long as it went bang, that's good enough, you know. May not have flashed at the same rate or anything like that, but see, you did have a hard time just finding shitty enough powder, most likely. Especially if, you know, I don't know if it was a Union or Confederate bullet that hit him. Who the hell knows? He was Confederate, but it could have been on a battlefield. Anybody's bullet can hit you. And then what kind of rifle did it come from? You know, there's so many different ones on the battlefield. You had Springfield, Enfield. Those are the two biggies. You had the Austrian muskets. You had the Henry, the Spencer, the Burnside, just to name a few. The Sharps, pistols. I mean, it's just dizzying how many different weapons.
Somebody could have got him with a Colt, yeah?
Sure, why not?
Either way, it hurt like a fucking motherfucker.
Yes, it did. It did. It absolutely did.
Yeah, they got copies of the letters down there saying, you know, miss you. You know, don't worry, honey. I got my good luck gold piece with me.
Yeah.
Or my $20 gold coin for good luck. And yeah, well, they said they had all the bones because it was all buried in the mud.
Oh yeah.
They say that they would have been more intact, but there's a hole in the ship. And you know
Yeah, well, silt got in there, but then
they say an anchor got it.
Oh.
They say it was in the holding pad. It's called the holding pattern.
Yeah.
And they say, okay, you can't come in yet. Tide's too high, too low. Okay, time to go. And they say pull the anchor up, and they would drag it as they're going. They say an anchor got it, and they, you know.
Well,
at some point.
In water that shallow, it's too warm to preserve the flesh. They would not have been fleshy after over a century and a half in the water. You know, they would have been bones anyway. But the silt coming in probably did help preserve the bones, though.
Yeah, they said they didn't have like toes or nothing, but they had everything else: ribs, everything, femurs, ankles, everything.
Oh yeah, skulls and all that shit. Yeah.
So they did facial facial recognition, so they know what everybody looked like.
Reconstruction, yeah.
Yeah. And all the skulls, the replicas of the skulls are actually on display there. That's a little creepy. You go in there and you look at them, and everybody's going, these are not the real. And they were going, no, they're buried. It's like, yeah. One of the other creepier stories is that that's not the first crew. The first
That's
one,
right.
What happened was they went...
Along with its inventor.
Right. What happened was they had, this is before the hit, the Housatonic days, they finally, after a day or two, whatever, got the thing up, and they couldn't get the bodies out, so you know what they had to do?
Cut them up.
Yep. And then they buried them in the cemetery, and we knew they were there. Well, they had to move the cemetery. They dug everything, you know how they knew which bodies they were digging up?
They were all cut up.
Yep. They said, we positively identified the 8 people. Everybody's like,
No, it was war, and they had to get that thing cleared for action.
Okay.
Corpses bloat, and everything else, you gotta do what you gotta do.
As they said they got it, popped the hatch, and I was like, ugh. How would you like that job?
I imagine they got morticians to do it, or doctors, people who would be experienced and could do it quickly and efficiently. Battlefield surgeon would have no problem at all doing that because that's all they did all the time, just saw off bodies. Bone saw. Pass up the arms, legs, and torso parts. Yeah.
Yeah, they have the location of the cemetery, and then when they had to exhume everything, they said, you know, they had some names, they knew who some were, and then when they dug those 8 up, we know for sure they're in here somewhere. Yep, that's them. God. What was the rank of that body that they just 10 years ago they dug up? That guy was just dead, but it was a Civil War soldier.
Colonel, I believe. That was more than 10 years ago, but...
When was that?
Oh, Jesus. Sometime in the 70s, I think. Or early 80s, or I don't know.
He looked like he got killed about 10 minutes ago.
Well, he was in a sealed cast iron coffin with a rubber seal, so it helped preserve the body for an unusually long period of time. And grave robbers broke in to get his effects because the market was increasing for Civil War relics and shit. They wanted his guns, his rings, and whatever else might be in there with him. And they took his head. Fuck all knows why.
So, you know what, though? That's a haunting you wouldn't want on you, though.
No.
What did they bring the head back, or?
I think they did get all the pieces back together again eventually. And reburied the colonel. This time in a normal coffin.
Hear about that in England all the time. Motherfuckers coming out of bogs and shit.
Oh, yeah?
Well, it looks like somebody killed him about a week ago.
Well,
come to find out, it was a week and 500 years ago.
Oh, yeah. I mean, bog bodies are pretty well used to by now. And a lot of times they gotta move. Fucking crypts and cemeteries, decommissioned churches, or cemeteries that are being moved and shit to make way for neighborhoods or roads or whatever. And they find some fairly well-preserved bodies.
I wonder what the oldest one is.
God knows. I know they found plenty of well-preserved bodies from the 1700s. I know that.
Last summer down in Queens, they dug up in trouble with the sidewalk or something. A pipe burst, so they went there to dig it out, and it was a European guy, but they dated it, and he was from, they think, from the Revolutionary War. You know, under the sidewalk there.
Yeah, never know. Some people were buried where they fell. Or it could have been a farmhouse there at some time, and you know, some people were often buried on their own land. Europeans gotta watch that shit because a lot of their little crypts there are full of plague victims and shit. Well, that could still be deadly even centuries later.
In the bone marrow?
Yeah, not really sure everything, you know. But apparently it can be deadly, and they have to take all kinds of precautions. Because, you know, there were mass graves during the Black Death. No, there was more than one plague that in England. The Black Death struck many times, but they threw the bodies into a hole somewhere and hope for the best, I guess. Sometimes they threw them in cellars and burnt down the house on top of them. And I guess to the point where so many people have died, there aren't enough people left to bury the dead. really all I can do. If they can move the bodies at all, is drag them to whatever convenient existing hole might be somewhere and throw them in.
Imagine seeing dead bodies all over Europe and
Huh.
rats and
They did in the 1300s and the 1600s, 1700s.
couldn't even imagine like just seeing that. Ugh.
Stink. Well, these were people used to death. You know, death was something that was every day.
Ring around the rosy.
Yeah, people died right at home. People died. Sometimes the wars were frequent. People got hacked up on the field. You saw that shit. Oh dear.
Digging up bubonic plague from 300-400 years ago.
Yeah, it does happen. You know, sometimes they'll be digging a new subway tunnel, whatever the hell, a vault, and it's full of fucking bodies. Skeletons usually, but yeah. It's not like there's a map left of where these bodies were buried. You know,
It was only how many? Hundreds of thousands?
Yeah, millions.
If not more, millions, yeah.
Whole villages were completely wiped off the fucking map. I mean, literally, the lowest person in the village had entered the Lord of the fucking Manor in a few weeks because there was nobody left. Everybody was dead. Or had run away. In the end, it burned itself out. Survivors walled themselves up, forded up, and killed anybody that came near, and that's how they survived.
We don't want no mail delivery here today.
No, that's right. Exactly.
We don't want you.
That's what spread the Spanish influenza in this country.
Came out of Kansas, right?
Originally, yes. It went around the world and came back again.
Knocking at the castle door. We don't want any.
1919, they basically shut down the country. No more public gatherings. Movie theaters are closed. No more sporting events are closed. You know, town audiences, halls are closed. Emergency situation. No more milk delivery. Everybody stay home. What they forgot was the United States Postal Service. So all these little villages out there, everybody was forded up in their houses. Knock, knock, ding dong bell. You know, and letter crawling with death, you know. And all of a sudden, they're spread again.
Now, you say the old and elderly, they didn't get sick?
The very old or the very... Well, actually, yeah, plenty of elderly people died, to be sure. But the average victim was young and healthy. Prime of life type thing, you know. And they said that you could leave for work, perfectly healthy and fine, and not come and knock them home. Die during the day. That quickly.
Did they ever figure out what it was?
Bacteriological infections, closest they've been studying it for years. Actually dug up corpses to get samples of it, you know, for modern study. I'm sure they have a much better idea today than they did back then. It's a bacteriological infection or something. So it really wasn't quite the flu. It was something else, but extremely deadly.
You said it killed more people in World War I, or?
Yeah, definitely killed more people in the war, yes. So many that we don't actually have an accurate number of how many people killed.
How many died in World War I?
Well, we lost 9 million soldiers in World War I from all sides.
All together, total?
All together, everybody. Russians, the Germans, the French, us, everybody.
So how many more did that disease claim?
Say as high as 50. I mean, the number is in dispute. Nobody really knows. But they're thinking it might be 20 to 50 million people.
It's like the death toll in the San Francisco earthquake.
Yeah,
they
because
said
a lot
400.
of parts of the world at that time did not have good communications to the rest of the world, so we didn't have accurate numbers. We don't know what happened in Outer Mongolia. We don't know what happened in Darkest Africa. You know, places like that, like today, they weren't in communication with the rest of the world. So that number could be higher. You know, we don't know. We only know the death tolls in the so-called civilized countries in the Western world.
Even then.
And they were huge. Oh, it's gone.
I should be around next weekend.
Yep.
Where's Tiger at? Hunting mice?
I imagine he is, or sleeping somewhere.